This is the Front Stretch on AM 590, brought to you by Joe's Karting, online at joeskarting.com.
We're going low into Turn 2, fully stocked by the Party Pantry in Council Bluffs, located just off the beaten path, 35th and 5th Avenue. It's time to find a gas station that won't break the bank with great prices on food, fuel, beer, and so much more. The Party Pantry is where you go to save a little bit of green, as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. They do the full-service gas station now. Even those attendants out there in the hot heat.
Jacob and Eddie.
They were pumping your gas, and on Tuesdays, the Hooters girls were out there, and they'll pump your gas for you for free, too. So
hey, and if I said it once, and every week, double D's and high octane.
That horse is getting beaten, isn't it? It's time for the Fast Five stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. The first one is the one that was all over NASCAR for all of last week. Bruton Smith comes out and says, we need mandatory cautions in NASCAR because this green flag stuff is not working for me. And let's call it what it is. Bruton Smith is a track owner in NASCAR, owns several of them as a part of his organization, Kentucky Speedway being one of them, and he made that announcement right before they raced in Kentucky last weekend, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it. Mandatory cautions in NASCAR. Here's the thing. I'm not opposed to the idea because I'm all about any way of making the sport more entertaining, more commercial friendly, and drawing more people in, thus drawing in more sponsors, thus bringing in more talent into the sport. But I haven't heard a viable way of making it happen. You can't just throw the caution. And I know NASCAR would obviously think about this for a long time, and Mike Helton came out and said, right now, NASCAR is staying the same. We're not considering it, although I know they're having, I can almost guarantee you they're having meetings saying, what can we do to make this? Because, I mean, the double file restarts were brought up when that rule was implemented. People didn't like it. When the Lucky Dog was implemented, people didn't like it. Well, look what it's done. It's
I actually like the Lucky Dog.
I like it too. I'm saying that this is a sport with fans more than any other base that I think this is the way it's been done. This is the way we're doing it. So all I'm saying to our fans out there is take into it with an open mind. If NASCAR decides they need to throw competition cautions, they already do it. So as long as they predetermine we're going to do it at lap 75, and then we're going to do it at lap 150 if there isn't a caution in between.
That's what I was just getting ready to say. My dad, loved my dad to death, but he is the crankiest old man. When there's a damn good race going on, you're 2-3 wide, it's anybody's race, and all of a sudden, hey, a caution debris, or a debris caution, you know. And Dad and I are like, where in the hell's the debris at? There's nothing on the track. I mean, what are these? I mean, did some bird poop on the track and they had to go clean it up or something?
Yeah.
You know, so I understand Bruton Smith, like you said, he wants to create more excitement for the sport. Hey, we're all for that. I mean, you see some of the best action on the restarts.
The double file restarts have brought a ton of action.
Yes, but I think instead of having these 40, 50, 60, 70, green flag laps where it takes all the excitement away. So, yeah, if you went every, 45, 50 laps, you had a mandatory caution.
Yeah.
It's easier on equipment. It does create that double file restart, Maryland restarts as we call them in racing. I think it's good. Just get away from the mysterious debris caution. Oh my God, that's irritating.
Yeah, there's conspiracy theorists out there that talk about how NASCAR finds these mysterious cautions and
you gotta help Jimmy Johnson somehow.
TV doesn't show it every time, but you never know. But obviously the caution, mandatory cautions would be spread out depending on the track. But let's face it, when they go with these long green flag runs and there's green flag pit stops, if you walk into the race and you don't have your car perfect, your day's done. If there's only one or two cautions in a race, and we've seen that several times with drivers, that they're just not able to work on their car enough, and it's like, hey, so-and-so won the race, and 9 seconds behind him was second placement. That's not interesting.
Remember the All-Star race? They broke it down into 4 20-lap segments? Perfect format. It was anybody's race on any one of those 20 laps.
Yeah.
And that was awesome, but you also knew where the cautions were coming. Unless somebody wrecked, you knew that there was a caution at lap 20, or a red flag or whatever, so they get their car. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So I understand what Britain's wanting to go here. Number 2 on the top 5, Dodge buying Penske engine program. Basically, Dodge, instead of folding their 10th into the 2012 season, and we've been talking about this here on the front stretch all year, they've come in and they've bought the entire inventory and the entire Dodge engine program. It's 80 men strong, and it looks like, I just lost my notes here. Basically, a move by Chrysler would open the door for someone like Andretti, who we've talked about, to venture into NASCAR with the new Sprint Cup team. And then one Dodge question is whether the Richard Petty 2-car team currently fielding Fords with factory support would stick with Ford or move to Dodge. So this is a big story here, because a lot of people had almost kind of written Dodge off. Their motors weren't doing that great. The cars were ugly. You know, I believe is actually Andrew said he didn't like the look of the car. I like the look of the cars.
Well, the look of the car has nothing to do with the performance.
Well, yeah, not the look, but the aerodynamics of the car. He didn't like the way that aerodynamically the look of the car. But when Dodge comes in and buys the Penske organization, the engine program. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
You're not buying rookies when it comes. These guys are the top of the game. They know what they're doing. They're right up there with Hendricks Motorsports with their engine program. This is huge, and I don't think Dodge would have done something like this if they were getting out of the sport. I said early on in the season, they're here to stay. They're not going anywhere, and this is the first sign that shows that I'm right on this.
Well, I still don't
just agree with me.
No, I still don't think you're right. I think this is a move to rest people's worries, because organizations aren't going to want to switch over to Dodge if they don't have an engine program, and especially if, let's say someone like, and I'm just pulling a name out of my head, I don't think they're going to, obviously they're not going to do it because they just re-signed, but let's say Joe Gibbs Racing is considering switching over to Dodge, even though they just signed a new deal with Toyota and we know that's not happening. Let's say, okay, and Penske's making the engines for them. How secure would you feel if your cars are running engines built by an organization that you're competing directly with? Every time an engine blows, every time you have horsepower issues, every time you're going to be sitting there going, are they rigging it? Is that what's going on here? Hey, let's look at Hendrick engines and Tony Stewart and Stewart-Haas Racing. Look who won the championship last year, and you suppose maybe Rick Hendrick was sitting there going, dang it, maybe this wasn't a good idea because he just beat four of my guys, So I think this is a move by Dodge to get their engine department under their own house so that they can become more attractable to other organizations. I don't think there's any organization that's going to switch. I think Dodge is going to be out of the Cup Series for a little bit. They're going to maintain the Nationwide Series, but they're in a tough spot right now. And so far I've heard no whispers, no rumors. Only Andretti Motorsports is their hope. Only Andretti Motorsports. So
you mark my words. You quote me on the radio show here, Dan. They're going to be around in 2013. They'll be around in 2014. They're not going nowhere.
I marked your words with the Kurt Busch making the chase thing, and you're trying to get out of that. So we'll find that audio too on the Kurt Busch. You're wearing a pink tutu.
We'll just have to go to the NASCAR hauler and discuss that.
On to number 3. Hamlin misses practice Thursday, Friday, and the Nationwide race due to back issues. Denny says that he's had some bulged discs and some issues that have been coming up, and that it really got worse after Kentucky, which is one of the roughest tracks on the NASCAR circuit, although I think we all enjoyed seeing the guys race like that. But Hamlin's had to miss a little bit of time, and there is some worry that he may be missing some Cup races if this back issue can't get better. Surgery is really not an option right now because it would put him out for several weeks, and he is one of the contenders for the chase. So I think he's just going to kind of grin and bear it and make it through. Turn 2, fully stocked by the Party Pantry, Council Bluffs, located just off the beaten path at 35th and 5th Avenue, with great prices on food, fuel, and a large selection of booze in their hooch room. Get to Party Pantry at 35th and 5th Avenue, where you go to save a little bit of green.
Number 4 on the top 5, Stewart and Dillon have qualifying times disallowed. Tony Stewart, who qualified second for the Coke 0400, and Austin Dillon, who qualified for the pole for the Subway Jalapeno 250, have their qualifying times disallowed by NASCAR for an open cooling hose to the cockpit. This is the second weekend in a row that the 3-car in the Nationwide Series has been penalized by NASCAR.
Last weekend they were penalized after winning for having too low the back of their car was basically too low, which everybody agrees is not what you want to have happen at Kentucky, because you want that butt up in the air, catching as much downforce as possible.
Oh, absolutely.
But now we're seeing, I mean, and I don't know if this penalty, I wouldn't count this as cheating as far as having the hose to the cockpit.
What I've heard also is a lot of people didn't really see this as a blatant form of cheating. It was just a mismeasurement somewhere in the garage or something like that. And they actually said that even though he won the race, that he actually had to work twice as hard just to win it.
Because it made the car loose.
It was so loose.
Exactly. And it was something that, because it was Kentucky, it was a bolt that had sheared and broken off on one of the shocks. And so the car sat a little bit lower. This was something that had typically happened with Richard Childress Racing in the Nationwide Series. It's where Elliott Sadler had gotten penalized earlier in the year. They thought they had it fixed, but for some reason the car they took to Kentucky slipped through the repair process and didn't get this little fix, put on the car.
You just said something that I don't necessarily like. Nothing bad on your part, but the bolt had sheared and broke. How can you possibly get penalized? Your car's sitting too low, and they can penalize you for that. But when they find out why the car was sitting low, how is it fair to penalize that kid?
Well, the fact of the matter is the car was sitting too low. And I think that's all NASCAR was looking at.
I hate rules like that.
Well, you know what? The thing is, though, is that you can't, in a big sanctioning body like NASCAR, you can't take exceptions to every rules. I know that there is exceptions to every rule, but they have to go by the book because you can't situationalize every single penalty.
So let me ask you something. At Crawford County Speedway, this has never happened, but
we got to keep it quick because we still got one more story to talk about in the big one, and we've only got about 2 minutes.
I'll tell you what, I'll bring it up in turn 4.
Okay, that sounds good. On to number 4, A.J. Allmendinger suspended by NASCAR for failing a random drug test. Shocking yesterday. Absolutely shocking. That was the best way I could put it. When I sent you the text, I first heard about it. 90 minutes before the race started, NASCAR informed the media that A.J. Allmendinger had been suspended temporarily due to failing a random drug test that had been administered earlier in the week. He was randomly selected for the test following the Kentucky race. There was an A sample done and a B sample done. The A sample had tested positive, although what it tested positive for was not released. So we don't want to speculate on far as what he was tested for, or tested positive for. AJ now has 72 hours less than 72 hours now, to tell NASCAR he wants the B sample tested. Let's rewind it for a little bit here. Jeremy Mayfield was suspended on race day in Darlington for his A sample testing positive for what eventually was found out to be methamphetamines. He then requested NASCAR test the B sample. It came back as a negative. That's what the whole lawsuit between Jeremy Mayfield and NASCAR was about, was that he was still suspended even though his B sample came back negative, which by the laws, it becomes a false positive and that has to be thrown out. But then NASCAR tested him the next weekend and he failed that one. So, and then the lawsuit again was over that he thought that it was 2 different drugs that were coming up with this unique chemical that is similar to, so whatever. But A.J. Allmendinger, I don't think there's anybody I've ever talked to or ever heard from that says he's a bad guy. It's shocking that this would happen, and hopefully this is just an error and that that nothing happens. But
there were reports, with the heat and the humidity down south, if you suffer allergies, it's going to kick you in the nuts. Mm-hmm. I know this. I lived in Virginia. I have allergies. And the reports were earlier on when the whole Mayfield thing broke that the one allergy medicine, Claritin D, that will actually cause you to come
test
out
positive for methamphetamines. It's an unfortunate thing. Sam Hornish Jr. was flown in very quickly, actually, to replace AJ in the 22. As far as what's going to happen over the coming weeks, no one has any ideas whether Penske is able to remedy the situation, if AJ is able to stay in racing. we always hope for the best, but when it comes to drugs, you cannot be on the track.
No.
Whether you're high at the time, coming down, I mean, I've seen some of these shows, I've seen it firsthand. When you start to have a withdrawal fit, you do not want to be in a race car when you have one of those things. So
absolutely. You know, and we're saying, you know, we're not saying that he was on anything or coming down off anything. This could have been a simple over-the-counter prescription that just,
right.
You know,
and it's
popped up
important to
positive.
note that NASCAR does have a list of unapproved drugs. And this is the kind of stuff that you and I can walk into Hy-Vee or any drugstore and pick up over the counter. NASCAR does not allow these guys to take it. So maybe it was one of those that it was just simply, I took one of these pills for a headache or for a sore arm, and I didn't realize it was a banned substance. So, you know, we don't know what it is. That's the important thing to know. So, that is the 5 stories that are dominating the NASCAR world. Just around the corner in turn 3, we're going to talk with Justin Zeitner, driver of the Z62 out of I-80 Speedway. We'll be back. This is the Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590 Omaha's ESPN Radio.